So, what happens when a set of rules that are designed to create a level playing field on every single university campus in the country, ends up sparking a massive political firestorm instead? Well, that is exactly what happened earlier this year. And it's a story that's all about good intentions, fierce politics, and, well, a whole lot of unintended consequences. So, the big question we're really digging into here is this: how on earth did a framework built around the idea of equity, of fairness, manage to set off nationwide protests, create this huge political divide, and ultimately land itself in front of the Supreme Court? Let's get into it. Okay, so it all kicked off in January 2026 when these new regulations were published. And the reaction? It wasn't just big, it was immediate and it was intense. This was no quiet policy update. It set off what you could only call a political earthquake. I mean, almost right away, huge protests started erupting. They were mostly led by student and community groups from what are known as forward or upper castes. Now, in a country with a long, complex history of affirmative action for disadvantaged communities, this new framework was seen by many as just a step too far. Political analysts pointed out that it created this really profound sense of alienation among the government's own traditional supporters. The backlash was so big, in fact, that the Supreme Court had to step in fast, putting the whole policy on hold. All of which makes you wonder, right? What was actually in these regulations that caused such a massive uproar? Okay, let's dive into the blueprint itself, because the framework was set to introduce some really powerful new ideas to campus life. See, these rules weren't just some document sitting in a drawer. They demanded a whole new infrastructure on the ground. Universities would have to create mobile equity squads to keep an eye on vulnerable spots on campus. Then every single department, every hostel, every library would need its own equity ambassador to basically be a champion for fairness. And on top of all that, a 24/7 equity helpline was required to give round-the-clock support to anyone who needed it. But here's what really stands out: this speed this thing enforces. The regulations laid out this incredibly strict, non-negotiable timeline. The second a discrimination complaint gets filed, the university's equity committee has just 24 hours to meet, then kicks off a 15-day investigation, and after that, the university has only 7 days to take action. This was clearly designed to stop those long, frustrating delays people had complained about for years. And get this, the rules had some serious teeth. If a university didn't comply, the penalties were just crippling. We're talking about being cut off from funding, getting banned from offering online courses, or the big one, being debarred from granting degrees altogether. For a university, that's basically an existential threat. Compliance wasn't a choice. It was about survival. So, with such a powerful and honestly demanding framework, what was the official goal? Why did the University Grants Commission feel that these drastic measures were so necessary? Well, the answer is right there in how they define equity. If you look at the official text, the goal wasn't just about punishing bad actors. It was about proactively creating an environment where every single person had a fair shot at success. The real focus was on making sure everyone had the same opportunity to enjoy their rights on campus. And this is a really, really crucial point from the documents themselves. The term stakeholder is defined to include everybody, every student, every professor, all the staff members. The regulations were written to be universal, aiming to create a safer, more respectful campus that would benefit the entire community, not just one specific group. But, and this is a big but, despite that official goal of being for everyone, the rules landed right in the middle of a political battlefield. The perception of the rules became something very different from the text of the rules. So what this created was a classic political catch-22. On one side, you had the government's core supporters, often from groups called the general category or upper castes, who felt the rules were unfairly targeting them. But on the other hand, some people saw the policy as the government trying to win over voters from communities like scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other backward classes, groups that have long been the focus of the opposition's social justice campaigns. And this whole debate was fueled by data just like this. See, on one side, people who supported the rules pointed to a 118% increase in reported discrimination complaints. For them, that was clear proof a stronger system was needed. But the other side looked at the same numbers and said, wait a minute, 378 complaints out of a national student population of 40 million? Is that really enough to justify these sweeping, disruptive new rules? And this led political analysts to ask a pretty sharp question, which is captured in this quote here. Had the government, by trying to engage on the opposition's social justice turf, accidentally alienated its own base? The argument was that the whole move backfired, creating distrust among their core supporters without actually guaranteeing any new ones. So where does all this leave us? Well, the policy, the protests, the political fallout, it's all led to this moment of really deep uncertainty. Let's just quickly trace how we got to the current standoff. I mean, just look at how fast this all happened. The rules come out on January 13th. Protests kick off just days later. By February, the Supreme Court has already hit pause on the whole thing. And today, the entire framework is just sitting in legal limbo, with its future completely depending on what the court decides. All right, so let's boil this all down. What are the crucial things to remember? First, these regulations were a huge deal with real, powerful enforcement behind them. Second, their stated purpose, at least on paper, was universal, a level playing field for everyone. Third, despite that, they triggered a massive political backlash from a key voter base. And finally, the whole thing now just hangs in the balance, waiting for a judge's decision. And that leaves us with this final, really big question that gets right to the heart of this whole controversy. It's something to think about. In a society with deep historical divisions, is it actually possible to create policies for social fairness that can escape the powerful gravitational pull of identity politics?